we move forward, please put your questions in the chat. We're super excited to hear from all of you, and we want to make sure that we share all the correct information. And for the things that we may miss or I may miss, we'll make sure that we get those answered for you. So again, please put your questions in the chat, and we'll get started here in a moment. Welcome to a Blumira webinar. My name is Robb, bringing you here into my lab environment. The only thing I've skipped so far is log in at blumira.com. Pretty boring, so we don't need to show that. Where we have dropped, and the first stop in this tour, is the summary dashboard. The goal here in the summary dashboard is to give you a high-level view of, hey, how many logs are you shipping into Blumira? A quick link into reports, detection rules, how are your cloud connectors doing, which I will talk about later, and other reports that you may want to dive in often. The more important item right below this is the unresolved findings. The whole job of Blumira is to give you alerts when something is going wrong in your environment, aka a unresolved finding. We'll be going through that in more detail here a little bit later on, but that is a high level of what the summary dashboard gives you. The next stop is going to be, how do you get information into Blumira, right? Because the whole idea is that you're going to send information our way. We are going to store it, parse it, and detect when something goes wrong. There are two main ways in which Blumira can ingest information. The first and newest is going to be our cloud connectors. For what you see on the screen here, AWS, Duo, Microsoft 365, SentinelOne, and Mimecast, we ingest information without any reliance on an on-premise sensor. So those will be a straight cloud-to-cloud connection, rather straightforward to set up, and no long-term maintenance for you. On the other side, we have the Blumira sensor, which is going to accomplish several things for you. The Blumira sensor was the first way in which we ingested information from both on-premise and cloud sources. Where we are today is a mix of obviously both cloud connectors and sensors. So depending on what your data source is, you may be using a mix of modules within the on-premise sensor as well as cloud connectors. An example for an item that is currently within a is currently within a module would be Cisco Umbrella. So yes, that is supported. Yes, that goes through a sensor, and long-term that will be moving, but that's where it is today. As of now, Blumira sensors are hosted on a vanilla Ubuntu 18 image. We will be moving to newer versions of Ubuntu later on, but for right now, we ask that you stay on Ubuntu 18 as it is still supported. And the heavy lifting of the VM itself is actually not any heavy lifting. It's very straightforward. Typically, what you're going to do, you'll deploy that vanilla Ubuntu image. You will install a sensor or add a sensor here within Blumira. I'll back up one step. You can add a new sensor. You choose the location, and what we'll give you is a script to run, which is going to be our concept of Docker on Docker, which is where the modules reside. So from start to finish, deploy the vanilla VM, run the script, and then typically you're done with the CLI of that particular VM, assuming you've given it a static IP and other tasks that you're going to be performing anyway with other VMs that you deploy. When it comes to the specs of the sensor, typically we recommend 4 gigs of RAM, 4 cores, and a 200 gig disk. As you can see here, you can get away with a lot less resources, assuming that you're not having hundreds and hundreds of appliances sending information into said sensor. So again, for those of you who may be a little bit strapped on resources, no big deal. You don't need to give us a ton of cores, right? So that is always something you can talk through with someone like myself, who's an SE at Blumira, or you can lean on the partner team, which is where JMA resides. So that's always something we can make fit for you. Within the sensor itself, in addition to the modules, for Google, Umbrella, etc., we also have a honeypot module. The honeypot module is going to be your way to say, let's give a drum for you to bang on that is either penetration testing, you're testing Blumira itself, and or you have a legitimate actor who is somewhere where they shouldn't be. So what that looks like, and I'm on a 4K screen here, which is why this looks a little wonky. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate 3 fake logins. There are no sets of real credentials, so you cannot actually log into anything here. So I just did 3 fake logins there. And I'm going to fly real quick over here to findings. And as soon as this page loads, you can see it's here. We'll talk about this in more detail here in a moment, because I'm going to finish talking about ingestion, then we'll come back to the next section. But that is where the honeypot module resides. You can see that I've already had it deployed, and you can deploy additional honeypot modules if you wanted, simply by clicking install. And again, we here at Blumira are going to take care of the heavy lifting for you of all these modules, so you don't need to do that. When it comes to the maintenance and or backup of this particular sensor, I'm happy to say that you don't need to do any of that. Should you burn down the Blumira sensor on purpose, on accident, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter, because you'll see on the top right-hand side, there's the rebuild sensor button. Again, you'll simply deploy that vanilla Ubuntu image. You'll hit rebuild sensor. We will generate that command for you. And then we will redeploy all of your previous modules the same way that you had before. So again, I'm very happy to say that should you burn that down, about 30 minutes worth of work or less, depending on what it costs you to redeploy a VM. And then about 5 minutes or less on the Blumira side, and you're done. So it's not a lengthy process should that VM get burned down and your cloud connectors are unaffected. When we talk about managing administrators within the Blumira platform, that's done here within the users tabs. So you can add as many folks as you want. You can see there's a lot of folks here at Blumira that are within this platform. You can add as many as needed. When we talk about notifications in the sense of how does Blumira alert you when something goes wrong, you have a couple options. Up here in the top right-hand side, you'll see there's a bell icon. Each Blumira administrator can make these decisions on their own. You can also set up a service account. So if you wanted to use an email address, something like a Slack channel and or Teams channel, Discord channel, etc., those are all fine and supported. Also, if you're using some telephony provider, Google Voice or PagerDuty, that is also fine and supported. Obviously, we still support straight email into the administrator's mailbox as well. It really will flex to fit almost anything that you need there to ensure that Blumira notifications are going to the proper parties in a timely manner. With that, I'm going to go back up into the findings themselves, because this is the really fun part about Blumira. We're going to go into the honeypot alert that I triggered earlier. And we're going to do a couple different things here within a finding. The first thing I'm going to do is, because I am the person working on this, I'm going to click assign to me. There's me right there. I'm assigned to it. And then below that, we're going to see an analysis of what happened and where did it happen. So the name of this particular module within my Blumira sensor is password server. You can change that name to be whatever you like. I encourage you, whatever naming convention you're using for your machines and VMs today, to follow that. So a would-be bad actor and or if you're hiring a consultant to do penetration testing will follow in line and look like a legitimate asset. On the right-hand side, we have our playbooks. So depending on what has popped within your environment and from where, we here at Blumira are going to give you a playbook to solve that on your own. And so in this particular example, source IP was determined to be an internal scanning, no action required. And I'm going to go ahead and close this. So This is a resolved finding. You may remember within the summary dashboard, we gave a quick link to unresolved findings, right? So the things that we want to bring you into the dashboard, have you resolve them as quickly as possible, and then you get back to doing whatever it is that you need to do, right? We here at Blumira are doing our job well when we give you the right information quickly and then get you out of the Blumira platform, right? That's when we're doing our job well. Let's talk about when things are not going so well and you may have a severe threat. You may have something that's a little bit out of left field, if you will, and you want some help. So in this example here, we've got a Cloudflare external proxy and no one is assigned to it. There is a help message here. So what does Blumira do in the sense of where there's a gray area, or you want to do fine tuning, or you find a bug, or whatever it may be? This message box, which every single finding will have, is your runway to talk directly to the Blumira security operations team. So if you want to get on the horn and talk with someone, and you just maybe want to get a second set of eyes, make sure you're thinking through something correctly, whatever it may be, you are free to post that here and we will respond in kind. Should you have a P1 threat, that is going to carry a 1 hour response SLA. So as all Blumira paying customers get is that 1 hour response SLA. So it's the middle of the night on Saturday or during the week, no big deal. We'll be there to help out. P2s and P3s will carry a 24-hour response SLA. I'm happy to say it's quite often much faster than that, but those are our promised SLAs. And we will share this in the chat, and or Jeremy will correct me and post it elsewhere. Links to our Zendesk page with the support articles and whatnot will be shared after my turn, after y'all have been done listening to me here today. So again, feel free to post whatever in there that you might need, including attachments. When we look at highly repetitive attacks, password spamming, brute forcing, this is where Blumira will continue to not be overly noisy and more helpful. What you'll see here is the matched evidence about how often this particular finding has popped up. I'm going to go back to, even though it's resolved, I'm going to go back to the honeypot alert that we triggered here just a few moments ago. When we look down here at the matched evidence, you can see the password and the user that I was typing. Obviously, I copied and pasted, so it's not super interesting here. But the important piece is there was 3 failed logins, which is the threshold. But Blumira only alerted me once, right? So in the midst of a penetration service that's inside your environment, you don't have to worry about Blumira sending you 50 emails or 100 Teams messages, right? What we're going to do is send you one high fidelity alert that can actually look a little bit different if they were to traverse laterally and move to another. If we're going to go to something from failed logins on your firewall to failed logins against the honeypot, that's an indicator that it'd be a situation where you would get 2, but not something where you would get 50, right? So that is something we're going to speak to, that lateral kill chain, as well as give you the information in a timely manner. So that is a quick run through on findings. And again, we can sort these by status, ID, type, priority, and we can also filter them out further depending on, again, if you want to look through something historically, or if you want to show a team member, maybe this new and how Blumira works, we can sort through all of that. Now to flip over to the report builder, excuse me there. When it comes time to, again, historical be a very common ask here, but I want to see information that I've shipped to Blumira. None of that information is waylaid in a box in the sense of you do not need to put a ticket in and say, hey, I want data from 6 months ago. All paid Blumira customers by default will have 1 year of data retention. All data within that 1 year is deemed hot. So you can no need cold storage to pull that back out. It's going to be ready for you to pull up at any time, and then you can export via CSV or JSON-L. This is a very simple report here, but I wanted to show you, again, how easy it is to pull this back out depending on what you're looking for. If you are working with the report builder and you're not able to find what you want, or potentially you just want to do some further tweaking that's not clear, that's actually a great situation to reach out to Blumira support, which we talked about that message box earlier. You could actually reach out right there if you wanted. You're also welcome to call and emails through our normal support channels as well. But that's a situation where we'll meet with you. We can either help you build a report or potentially build it for you, depending on what the situation calls for. But we're always happy to take a meeting with our customers and sit down and say, hey, how can we bring more security value to you while maintaining Blumira being a very simple to use tool? One of the things that we do find, and is very common within the SIM space, is custom detections. And I'm not going to go into all those details here today, but I do want to touch on how that looks in the sense of, if there's a particular detection that you maybe don't see, that's actually okay. This is an example where we can build a scheduled report, a non-scheduled report, as we just saw there. But there's situations where we can help you get that information. And again, there's no additional cost for these scheduled reports. So let's say that you wanted to see a summary of all failed logins once a month, right? We can go ahead and automate that. We talked about that Teams channel that you may have set up for Blumira notifications. That's a great channel to consume these in. Yeah, you can see here, you can choose on when and where you want those delivered. Pretty straightforward here. The takeaway there, though, is should you need something, again, a little bit of out of left field, no big deal. Reach out to Blumira support and we'll be happy to help. I'll go back to the summary dashboard for a moment and just, again, talked about those unresolved findings. These will stack here. This is obviously my lab environment. So this is going to be much higher than it typically is. When I had talked about the detection rules and reports, this is going to be a quick link into the reports we just talked about. So there's two ways to get there. Number one, summary dashboard, click on reports here. Otherwise, you can go into reporting and then report builder. That's two ways to get there. Detection rules. What does Blumira detect? Well, glad you asked. I'm going to fly over to settings and then detection rules. The detection rules are going to look different almost on a per customer basis. When I say almost, this is contingent on the data types that you're shipping to Blumira. The way that this works is that if you ship the data type Windows, we have a base level layer of rules that will be enabled for all customers. From there, all customers have the power to turn rules on and or off, as you can see here. As you ship more data types to Blumira, you will see the rule count grow. And even if you don't ship new data types over time, you will still see the number of rules grow, because part of what we here at Blumira are doing to make your life easier is we're writing parsers. Yes, so let's say that you switched from Windows 10 to Windows 11, or from Server 2019 to Server 2022, because Microsoft updated the way that the firewall logging is kept. We are the ones here at Blumira updating that parser and updating those rules for you. So that's not something you need to do. Again, we're going to take care of all that maintenance for you. So you can change these rules, again, as needed, on and off. And then there's yet another feature, which I'll talk about at the end, which gives you a third way to make these more customized. When Blumira talks about automated threat detection and response, I am happy to say we do have a very nice feature here called block lists. So for any folks who are running a next-gen firewall and or a firewall that supports dynamic block lists, this is a way where we can get in front of some of those highly repetitive attacks and attacks in general. So the way that this works, very straightforward. You add these block lists to your firewalls, and then on the threat side, when we talk about these findings, when you're going to go through and action a playbook, in the sense of if a attack surfaces from your firewall, and we deem that an IP is a rogue IP or an untrusted IP, pretty much however, whatever adjective you want to add there. When Blumira closes that out, closes it as valid, and you have marked the IP as untrusted, that filters through two block lists here. So this range of IPs is sourced from the community as well as known bad IPs. You can obviously also manually add IPs, but where that automation comes in, again, you close out that playbook, this automatically gets updated for you. Thus, you don't need to come into the page that I'm on at all, you do not need to go onto your firewall and update said list. This will be expanding over time, so definitely stay tuned on what we have coming over the next few months. But this is the block lists feature for today. Want to go over real quick the other dashboards that we have to offer. So we have the responder dashboard. Given a real production environment, not my lab environment, the map and the states will speak a little bit different story, obviously, because you'll be giving more data sources than I have here today. The manager dashboard, designed to be left statically. If you have a dashboard in an office, I know that a lot of us are working from home. This was designed to be relatively static, though thrown up on TV or a corner of a TV, if you will. What I want to touch on last, and again, for those of you watching, please put your questions in the chat. Send them over to Jeremy. If something I have said is not clear, please let us know. If you also want to give Jeremy feedback that I have not been the most entertaining person ever, that's totally expected, and I'm sure Jeremy would love to hear that. But please keep those questions coming. We love talking with everybody. I do want to talk about a new feature here at Blumira, and again, how we're driving the battle against false positives. So I'm going to go into a startup detection. In this case, we are talking about Tailscale. And let's say Tailscale is a known good program and that you use legitimately. Well, what we have built here at Blumira are detection filters. So I can create Tailscale, and I could see that the options I have, I could say we can pull that from the process name, and I can go contains, and I can say Tailscale, and then I will save this. And so I can say that whenever Tailscale is in the process name, that it's not going to generate finding. I can also say that has to come from a device address of 0.230. So let's say that Tailscale is expected from Bob Vance. Works for Vance Refrigeration, you might have heard of him. But it might not be expected from Creed Bratton's machine. So again, when we're talking about Blumira driving the speed to security and simplicity of security, we want to cut down on those false positives. This is going to be one of the tools in our belt to help give you that. And the nice thing is, again, if you're already a Blumira customer or if you're new to Blumira, again, feel free to reach out to us. This is all things we'll run through with you. This is not something where you simply have to read the documentation and say, I don't get it, and then you're left out in the cold. Nope. Go ahead and reach out to us. These are questions we love to have, and we'll always walk through with you. There's obviously a lot of different ways that you can stack the detection filters depending on what you want to cut out. Happy to say, though, again, very easy, very human readable. You have your options here, and then you have the list of what we detected on for that particular filter. So we'll go ahead and fill out my device address, and we'll go ahead and save that. And that's been saved, and you can see by who. Detection filters have been here at Blumira, been out for a little over a week, so super fresh new feature. Happy to show you here today. As I close out, we do have our everything documented at Blumira. So if you want to take through, if you want to run on your own without having to talk to those pesky salespeople, no big deal. You can definitely do that. Again, keep those questions coming. I always love to talk to everyone out there. Should anything else come up, feel free to reach out.
All right, and now Jack will take some questions from the audience. If anyone has anything to ask Jack, please feel free to put that in the chat or in the Q&A. We'll give you all a few minutes if you want some follow-up questions for Jack.
That, and also thank you all ahead of time for listening to me talk about Blumira here for 20 some odd minutes.
And if you're too shy to ask a question on here, that's totally fine. You can hit yes on the poll that we're running now if you want to follow up with Jack one-on-one and get those questions answered as well. I think we'll give people just a few more moments, Jack, but if no one has any questions, then we'll give them some time back in their day.
Sounds good. Thank you, Erica, and thank you everyone for joining.
All right, looks like there are no questions for Jack. If you change your mind, we will be sending out an email with a recording of this webinar and demo, and that will give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you have on there as well. I hope everyone has a great day, and thank you so much for joining us on another Blumira webinar. And thanks, Jack, so much for joining us and for giving your insight and walking us through the platform and detection filters, which is a really exciting new feature. All right, thanks again, everyone.